Hey everybody, and welcome to the Three Gun Show, episode 261. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and Adam Kraut is once again on the Three Gun Show podcast from Triggrcon in Bellevue, Washington. We were there just recently, and we had a wonderful conversation that I know you're going to enjoy here. You'll recognize Adam from his show, The Legal Brief, on the Gun Collective's YouTube channel, where Adam explains complex firearms laws in terms that we can all understand. And make us better humans and better communicators. So much cool stuff has happened since I spoke to you last. I just shot the Wyoming governor's match in Cody, Wyoming, and spoiler alert, it was awesome. More to come on a future Patreon episode, so you better go sign up to hear more at threegunshow.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. But for now, I'll just tell you that I shot the best match I've ever shot in TAC Ops and came away with a 17th place finish. Super, super proud of that one, but I'll tell you more at a later time. I'm also going to tell you about the amazing stages and what a bang-up job Pete Rensing and his crew at USSL did. So look forward to that one at a later date here. Coming up a few short weeks from now is the Jeff Kirkwold Memorial 3-gun match in Forest Lake, Minnesota. 4 stages the first day, a shoot-off the second day based on how you shot on day one. A match where everyone gets to shoot in the shoot-off is so rare, and you don't want to miss out on it. So look for it on practicescore.com. Just search for Kirkwold. That's Kirkwold. That's one word. And I'll be there, calling the action live for the shoot-off, and you can be a part of that as well. This podcast is brought to you by JP Rifles, and I do want to tell you about them as well. JP put a ton of prizes on the prize table at Wyoming, which is always great to see. It's cool to support companies that support the shooting sports, and JP is definitely one of those. And I've mentioned it before, but they're I can't get over their silent capture spring, and it's blowing my mind this year, and I can't believe it took me so long to discover it. The rifle has a flatter and softer feel with this little device in the buffer tube than it does with the normal spring and buffer combination. Many people overlook the gas system as a system, and I do believe the silent capture spring is a part of that. Adjustable gas block, low mass carrier group, and a silent capture spring will completely transform the way your rifle handles, and they're all available at jprifles.com. I'm going to get one for every single rifle I own. They're that good. Last thing before we get started here is a piece of feedback from Mark M on Instagram as VWRXYZ, and this feedback is on last week's show with Tim Ramberg, and Mark tells us, just listen to the show, and I love the things that need to die portion. If you haven't heard, by the way, Dave here again, if you haven't heard that, go check it out. We had some pretty good things that need to die in the firearms industry and in practical shooting in particular. I thought that was kind of fun. Back to Mark here. Just wanted to pass along an anecdote on Gucci gear. I think it's a military law enforcement quip about trying to buy skill and eliteness, like the FBI SWAT team thinks they have the best, or they are the best, because they have to have the newest and most expensive boots. No joke. The newest boots. So what's ironic with how the internet uses it from Grantham is that people take it to mean a tricked out gun. But I think it's a knock at people who try and buy skill. Or I just totally misread the internet. Anyway, great podcast. Helps me get through the week. First off, thanks, Mark, for the feedback there. Definitely appreciate that. And I thought that was kind of an interesting little bit on Gucci gear. And it's about buying skill, which as proper 3-gunners, if you're listening to this show, you know you can't do, but you can listen to the podcast, and that will help you out. All right. Well, so once again, thanks again, Mark, for the feedback there. That's all I've got for now. So enjoy this week's podcast with Adam Kraut. Adam, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be back.
It's great to have you, man. This is our yearly ritual now.
Well, it's becoming. I mean, I guess if 2 years in a row is a yearly ritual, then
yeah.
All right.
It's a tradition. It's the second annual
podcast with Adam Kraut at Triggercon.
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
Cool.
Well, dude, I'm pumped to chat with you because the last year we had a great time. I got a lot of great feedback from the podcast, and people really enjoyed to hear your perspective because you have a unique perspective on the firearms industry because, like, on the one hand, you're like what some people could consider like a pundit, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know, right? And then on the other hand, you're also a lawyer, so you actually have some knowledge to back it up. You're not just like some douche canoe that's like speculating on everything in the industry. You actually understand what's happening behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, being called a pundit and a lawyer sounds like a douche canoe, so I don't know. I mean, you're not really making the case here.
I mean, not someone I would invite to a party, that's for sure. But
oh, that explains why I wasn't invited. Yeah, no, you're probably right. I probably do, I guess, have a little bit of a unique perspective, at least with the legal background and being involved in active litigation and stuff. And then, I mean, I guess from the pundit perspective, I don't know. Everybody's opinion is worth what it is.
Well, how do you describe what you do on the Gun Collective then if pundit's not it?
I would probably describe it more as educational or educator. That was the whole premise behind the show, was to take sometimes complex things. I mean, for everyday laymen that don't have legal training, and try to distill it down to a level where it wasn't like, hey, this is the color red and this is blue, but like, a level where everybody can kind of just understand what's going on, so that people who don't want to or can't understand what's written in, like bills and things like that can understand like what this thing is actually about or saying. So the goal was to educate people and put good information out there. So I would say it's probably more the idea anyway. My hope was that it's more educational, and it seems that a lot of the people I meet and talk to that like it and watch it tend to say, hey, I learned something.
Oh, for sure.
And for me, that's the most rewarding thing, because that was my purpose behind it. So that validates the time I put into it.
What I like, this is kind of like a little human nature glimpse, but what I like is watching you talk about topics that I think I know the answer to, that I think I know what's going on there.
Right.
And then finding out, like, one, if I'm right, one, if I'm wrong, but then it also helps me explain it to someone else down the road who, maybe asked me a question like in daily life, but is not necessarily going to go to YouTube and watch the Gun Collective.
Sure. And that was the other, that was kind of the other purpose behind it, was not only to just give information to people who are watching it, but also now they can go explain it to someone else. So if they're in a discussion, I don't want to call it an argument, but a discussion with someone else who might have an opposing viewpoint, that they can explain, well, this is what this thing actually does. And it's I've gotten a lot of angry comments and sometimes emails about this, that I'm not up there screaming that this is unconstitutional or taking a position, but it's just, this is what it is. And I do my best, at least when I write the stuff out. Sometimes it gets changed when we read through it before the show a little bit, but I do my best not to interject my own opinion or thoughts into it, but just, this is what it says, and that's it. Like, here's the information, make up your own mind as to whether it's good, bad. Obviously, I'm a very pro-gun guy, so there'll be calls to action at the end, like, hey, you should call your senators and representatives and tell them not to do this, and that might be me interjecting my opinion. But as far as like what the thing is, I try to keep that as factual and straight as possible, so that way people can at least understand what it is and make up their own mind.
And I think that's good because in a world where like mainstream media does not do any sort of like straight factual analysis of anything, it all comes with an opinion. It's refreshing to be able to find a source that has just facts, and then you can, figure out your own opinion, because there may not be guys that agree with like you and me about machine guns. There's
plenty of people that don't. The reality is, there's plenty of people who don't, and okay, well, that's your opinion. I think you're wrong. Here's why I think you're wrong. But anybody can look at a set of facts and come to their own conclusion one way or the other. And they may be the same, they may be polar opposite, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about humans is we can all look at the same event and come away with like different conclusions on what happened, what it means, and you just never know what's going on in someone else's head.
No, and I think some of it, to a degree, deals with how they were raised, where they were raised, what they may have seen in life or not have seen. stuff like that. So I understand how people arrive at different conclusions. The question sometimes is it a well thought out logical conclusion, or is it one just based on feelings and emotions? And this is the biggest problem in the gun debate, I think, is that you have people that are speaking two different languages.
Mm-hmm.
That will never see eye to eye. It's impossible to take logic and reason and have a discussion with emotion and come to some kind of common understanding or whatnot, because you can present all these facts and data and things, and but I feel this way.
Right.
I feel this way.
Right.
Yeah, but this also, yeah, but I feel this way. How do you? Well, I don't feel this way. You just that, and that's the biggest problem, I think. Or one of the biggest problems is that they're two different languages and they don't exactly mesh.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have you ever broken into someone's little bubble of feelings and used, I don't know, again, like an argument in the classic sense to like sway their opinion? Is it possible, or are we just beating our heads against the wall?
I think it's possible, but I think the manner in which a lot of the community attempts to do it is one that's incredibly off-putting.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me you find one person in this world that you can go up to and tell them that you're wrong,
mm-hmm.
and then expect that they're going to continue to listen and not defend their position,
mm-hmm.
To the death. Like, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to be told they're wrong.
No. That immediately puts you on the defensive too.
Absolutely.
So now you close off to whatever's going to come next.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is one of those things, and I get people are passionate about it, but there are other ways to get to the "you're wrong" without starting with the "hey, you're wrong."
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do very poorly. And granted, the other side screams you're wrong too, and at this point, nobody wants to even have a discussion. It's just, I'm right, you're wrong, and if you don't agree, well, screw you. And we might have 100 other things in common. That doesn't matter anymore because you're wrong on this, and we can't be friends or talk. Okay, and it's not just gun related. That pick your topic and there you go. The other one that I find a really poor analogy, and maybe I'm alone in this, but when people bring up murder and all this other stuff, when the argument goes to, well, they're for abortion, and I don't want to get into an abortion discussion because opinions don't. I don't care what you think. You don't care what I think for this. But the point of this is that when it goes to the two different languages again, because it's, well, what do people think? Some people believe that a fetus is a life, and other people believe that birth starts at conception, and other people believe that it's not until the baby's born breathing on its own that it's actually a person. So when you're saying that, well, you're all for murder, or you don't care about children's lives, well, these people are for abortion, well, maybe from your perspective you see it that way, but they don't necessarily consider it the same thing.
And now you're bringing in another hot button topic that's now clouding the discussion.
Yep, and that's one of the bigger things you see if you go to rallies and stuff, is that, this is supposed to be about the Second Amendment and gun rights. Why is this guy standing here with a banner on, pick your other topic?
Oh, God, yes.
Well, this is supposed to be
the
about
Fed. I agree, bro, but not the time or place.
Yeah, this is not an end the Fed rally. This is a firearms rights rally. They're very different topics.
Yeah.
While we may agree on that, where you stand on that topic, it has nothing to do with why we're here. And, it's one of the things I think that detracts from things going forward, is that you have all these different values that are trying or topics that are trying to be inserted into a conversation sometimes. Sometimes I guess it just goes back to people being passionate about what they believe about and not necessarily taking the time to think about the venue that they're pursuing that idea. Or maybe they are. I don't know.
I mean, maybe they have an ulterior motive or something like that. Well, so this I think this line of talk is a good place to discuss the NRA, because I've seen the National Rifle Association, which in those three words seem to have a very specific function, talking about conservative rights in other areas.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And as an NRA member, I don't like that. As a gun rights advocate, I think that's damaging to us. Because now you're requiring me to take the entire plate, the entire meal that you've set out, and I can't just say like I want the green beans, you know?
Right.
So what's your thought on that?
No, I'm completely there with you. I think it's an incredibly dangerous road to go down, and I've said this before. Like typically, and I we can use these words in a looser sense, but typically Republicans are for gun rights, and typically Democrats are anti-gun. As a stereotype, I guess, if you want to phrase it like that. But there are Republicans who are anti-gun. There are Democrats who are very pro-gun. And quite frankly, what you think on any number of other topics as far as social programs, gay rights, whatever, has nothing to do with the discussion as to the Second Amendment or firearms rights. And once that stuff starts getting inserted in the conversation, as you pointed out earlier, it clouds what it's about. So, yeah, now you have people that would otherwise potentially be members having no interest in an organization because this organization is now involving itself in other things.
Right.
Now, when it comes to the political donations and things like that, I think that water becomes a little more difficult to navigate because there isn't such a clear delineation as to, okay, well, we can't necessarily pick a side because you're kind of forced to pick between A and B. And that's the whole discussion about our political system and how stupid the two-party system is. That which foot do you want to shoot yourself in, the left or the right?
Exactly.
Pick one. Neither really. This one over here is a really good option. Why can't we do that? But no, if you don't vote for this guy, then the other side wins, and this is the whole strain.
Lesser of two evils is still evil.
Absolutely, and it's becoming very tiresome to hear that argument as to it's the lesser of two evils, or yeah, we as a society have a problem there, but that's a different discussion.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of stuff interjecting itself into the discussion is problematic. And you look at the current leadership of the officers of the NRA, and they're both the president and one of the, I think it's second vice presidents, is extremely tied into the Republican Party. And what they choose to do on their own time is absolutely their business. I can't fault them for pursuing other things, but at the same token, I can't say that comes without consequence to how they act within decision making in the organization.
Yeah. Well, it's like the conversation right now that's going on with big tech's hyper liberal views, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that does cloud what they do in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing, and it's easy to say, and practice is much harder. It's one thing if somebody has these views, no matter what they are, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum, and they come into work and they are, my job is X, and my personal views don't come into it. So my job is to prevent, Google, for instance, you want to talk about big tech. My job is to make sure that search results return based on a user's search. And in theory, it's really easy to say, okay, well, the algorithm says this, and we're not going to do anything to change it in order to dampen certain results from returning or to boost things that have a negative impact on, that would potentially negatively impact a person's view on whatever that topic, person, thing is that they're searching about. But you could obviously also go the exact opposite way and say, hey, I've got access to this, and maybe we don't do it super overtly, but we add some things in there that potentially sway people's opinions.
Yeah. So maybe when you search for gun violence, moms demand action, which is a entirely AstroTurf organization, comes up before Gun Collective, which has a massive following.
Yeah, possibly.
As an example.
The down in Delaware, I was down there for a rally they did. So there was a last year there was a Facebook group that was started called Delaware Gun Rights, and it blew up overnight. It had started by a gentleman, Mitch, who was upset with how things were going in Delaware, and it was a Facebook group, and they organized a rally at the Capitol, and I went down to it. And the one thing that really was interesting to me was you hear about how you can't do things without these major organizations, and that's totally not true. If gun owners got off their asses and did stuff, it would be really difficult to actually compete with them. So here was a bunch of pissed off people that did exactly that. So now they've gone from a Facebook group to becoming an actual entity and things like that. And they had another rally this year, and I was asked to speak at it. And they do it at the end of the legislative session down there. And the one thing that I was told was that you look at the Moms Demand Action people who showed up to some things, and none of them were from Delaware.
Really?
They're like a handful of them, but for the most part, no. And the numbers are not nearly as big. You know, I see it in Pennsylvania, for instance. In Pennsylvania, um, there's in the Capitol building, there's a rotunda. So if you don't know what it is, just picture a big dome on top of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. We have one of those on our Capitol building. And there's a stairwell in there that goes up, and you know there's rooms that go to the wings on either side for the building. And when the gun rights people have their rally, they fill that whole thing up. They used to do it outside, now it's inside. When Moms Demand Action does it, they fill the staircase sometimes a little bit, and then they take a picture cropped in on the staircase to make it look like we had all these moms. And you know, of course, the way everything's reported is always skewed. Like several hundred gun owners showed up, and like several, hundred moms showed up. And when you look at that and you look at the picture, and it's always done in a manner to suggest that one group had a much larger turnout than the other, and you can guess how those are typically portrayed.
They find the one kook that's dressed up in cami and has the "and the Fed" side.
Yep. They never go to the guy who's dressed in a suit and tie or looks like just dressed in slacks and a polo, or looks like a normal guy. They always look for the guy that potentially paints people in a bad light.
Yep.
And, of course, all the moms bring their kids and blah, blah, blah. And everybody thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, that all these moms. But the real reality is there's not that many of them. And then, on the flip side, there are some that are very active and certainly do try to push to, dampen people's rights.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing to dedicate your life to try to squash someone else's rights.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily view it like that.
They don't.
I think they view it more as a safety issue, or, pick however you want to frame it. But this idea of individual liberty, just generally speaking, within our society is one that's not really instilled in anybody anymore. There's very little people, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum. It's funny, everybody likes to talk about liberty, but it's only cool when I'm, imposing my brand of it on you.
Yeah.
So I think there is a disconnect with this idea that, like government should be limited, and that, pretty much like as long as you're not doing anything to hurt anyone else, I don't really care what you do, quite frankly.
Yep.
And as long as you're not forcing your views on me, and I'm not going to force mine on you, like, cool, we can all live together and be pretty happy people. And I think one of the biggest things that people forget is, like, at the end of the day, we probably all have a lot more in common with each other than we don't. But nobody wants to talk. I think we talked about this last year a little bit about, the PRS match that you were shooting. But, people have a lot of stuff in common. You just got to find common ground. And nobody seems to want to do it anymore. No,
and I think the current climate with the media is encouraging that, because they're looking for any sort of reason to hang Trump, right, wrong, or indifferent. Who cares? But they're looking for any sort of reason. So it doesn't matter what he says, what he does. It's outrage, 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 and they're manufacturing it.
Yeah.
So I think the constant intake of that affects people to where now they're sensitive to outrage, and now there's a police officer in Starbucks and I'm going to go ask the manager to make him leave, stupid bullshit like that. But on like a micro level, I can talk to any one of my neighbors,
right,
who are way different than me in many different ways, starting with skin color, and we have no issues whatsoever, except for I should mow my lawn, So,
sorry, I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks.
Exactly. I'll get on that.
My bad.
But yeah, like on a micro level, individual level, it's so easy to get along with people who are reasonable. But it's really hard to on a macro level, because we think of us and them. Tribalism bullshit.
That's exactly what it is. We were talking about this earlier this week. So people there's a book called, I think it's The Tribe, and it's about a military. I think it's about the military.
I heard that guy on Tim Ferriss' podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
And this idea of tribalism goes back to, all the way back to like the beginning of mankind. Like man needs a group of people to fit into, and you see it on a macro level, micro level, and everywhere in between. Like, in the gun industry, there's cliques of people, and in gun owners, there's cliques of people, and pick whatever you want. Pick music people. They all have cliques, and a group that they want to belong to, and just pick a topic, and then you can find the same effect. And there was I'm reading a book right now, The Lucifer Effect, who's written by the psychologist who did the Stanford prison experiment.
Oh, okay.
So I'm about halfway through the book, and it's just now wrapping up about he went through the experiment, and now he's talking about what did they data, what did they learn from it. But in the part I've read so far, there was the description about this idea of people wanting to belong to a group.
Yeah.
And so that is something you see, and it absolutely does. It has that effect of tribalism. And I've totally blanked where I was going with that.
Well, we were talking about we have problems with us versus them.
That's what it was.
But on an individual level, we can get along.
That's what it was. And I mean, you look at the war aspect of that. It's just something I don't have any personal experience with, but I've seen it in talking to people that have been to war, and you dehumanize a group of people, and now all of a sudden it's not potentially taking a fellow human being's life. It's the enemy, or the savages, or pick however you want to phrase
Charlie.
Sure,
for Vietnam.
Yep,
that's always one you can reference because that is a fact. Can't reference the ones that are happening now.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so that's a small example.
Yep.
Krauts.
Yep.
Sorry.
Ironic.
Didn't realize that until I said it.
No, that's cool. But yeah, no, it's the same thing. It takes away that humanity aspect, and it just makes it, I guess, easier, if you will, to do things that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily be willing to do to your fellow man.
Yeah.
So
maybe it's the same thing for squashing on rights. Like, you got to dehumanize them, call them the deplorables, and then it's okay to
possibly
to squash on rights.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is.
Perhaps.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a weird thing.
Definitely different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and
human nature is just an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
The why and the how and the way the brain works or doesn't work. The psychology is a fascinating subject. I took one or two classes in college on it, and it was definitely interesting, but not something I want to spend my life doing. Not that I wanted to be a lawyer, but yeah, here I am. So,
what did you want to be?
I have no idea. I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was like a kid, but I didn't like roller coasters, so that one went out the window. And I get asked all the time, if you could do anything, what would you do? I don't have the slightest idea. Otherwise, it'd be like running towards it full speed.
Yeah, no shit.
So I found something that I guess, some people seem to think I'm okay or good at it, and that's kind of what I'm doing until I figure out something else that I think I want to do.
Yeah, I like doing things that I like to do, and I like doing creative things, and so that's kind of where I am with what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
it's
being a
makes me happy.
Content creator is definitely that. The one thing I guess I can say that I honestly did enjoy, at least work-wise, in my recent life was, and I worked in restaurants for a number of years. I enjoyed the chaos of the kitchen. That to me was always very fascinating, and something calming about it. It would start calm, then it would just sometimes deteriorate into just a total breakdown and mess. And it's, well, how do we pick this up and fix it and keep moving, because those people are hungry and they want to eat, and this isn't going to stop anytime soon. And then it would wane out, and that would be the end of it. But I also like working at the gun shop. One of the things I really liked was helping new gun owners. Or people that were looking to buy their first gun. Okay, well, rather than tell you that this is what you need, let's talk about why are you looking for a gun. Okay, well, here's some things that might suit that purpose, and here's this gun, here's this gun, and here's what this one has and this one doesn't have. And the most important thing is going to be how it feels in your hand, because if you're not comfortable shooting it, well, then you might as well just throw it out. And helping those people, giving them information and allowing those people to determine what was best for them based on the information. And working with my hands and just doing stuff. I hate sitting behind a desk. I'm not really good at it.
Yeah, so it's funny you mention that, because I spend a shitload of time behind my desk editing stuff. But I love the content creation aspect of it, but then the actual, fine tuning that is the editing process just takes so long, and it's right by a window, and I can see it's sunny outside. I'd rather be doing that. Yeah, it's tough, but
you're making this sound. So I think I told you earlier that I toyed with the idea of starting my own podcast. So
you did, yeah.
I don't want to talk about guns.
Oh, cool.
There's one
So
of the things
I've been actually looking to start a second podcast where I don't talk about guns.
Well, see, I think one of the things that people kind of forget is when they see people on like YouTube or hear them constantly on podcasts and the topic is guns. There's other facets to these individuals. Everybody I know, well, most of the people I know that do this kind of stuff, like they all have a bunch of very varied interests outside of guns. Guns are just like a common thing that they all like, but a lot of them like tons of other things. There's a few that it's all just guns, but they're like the exception, not the rule by any means. And it's funny when you talk to people who watch you or listen to you, like, they just want to talk about guns most of the time. Like, hey man, you've got to have other interests, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What else do you like? Let's talk about some other stuff. Like, you want to tell me about the sweet gun you saw? Yeah, sure. I'll absolutely listen. And, if you want my opinion on it, which is worth nothing, I'll be happy to give it to you. Just know it's worth absolutely nothing. But so that was the idea. Like, well, I'd like to do a podcast, but I don't know what the hell I'd talk about. And who would I have on it? Because all my friends, not all of my friends, but at this point, the majority of people I know that anybody else would have a clue as to, from like people that would potentially listen to my podcast, would all be within the firearms industry anyway.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So short of
where would I find guests?
Yeah, short of just grabbing people from the firearms industry and be like, hey, this is so and so, and we've known each other for X number of years, and now we're going to talk about like food for the next hour. Like, what do you do? Look up like famous people or like kind of relatively well-known people online. Be like, hey, so I'm started a podcast. You have no idea who I am. Would you be a guest? I don't know. Maybe that would work. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe it would. Like I've definitely helped a lot of people start their podcasts, and they all start with like, Dave, it's not going to be about 3-gun. It's not going to be about firearms industry, and then it all ends up being back to like ultimately that thing that I know them from, because that's their social circle,
Yep.
So it's difficult. And when you talk about like, okay, well, what would it be on? Who would I get? Like, those are the tough discussions. And with when I started the 3-gun show, it was pretty easy because I just went down the list of the dudes that were in the hunt for the 3-Gun Nation Pro Series. I'm like, that guy, and I just reached out to all of them, So if you want advice, I'm happy to give it to you, but I would definitely start with a niche, and maybe like a certain segment and then expand from there.
I already came up with a name for it, and an image. Like, I started screwing around with this back in January.
Grateful bread.
No, well,
it's about food and music.
Yeah, it was going to be called Literal Nonsense.
Oh, that's actually a great title.
Just because, like, I don't want it to necessarily have a topic. And I know, like, most people, when you're at least talking about content creation, like a podcast, like Joe Rogan's the gold standard.
Yes.
I've never once listened to a Joe Rogan show. And to be quite frank, when we started the Gun Collective podcast, when I used to do that, I listened to like one or two other podcasts before I was like, okay, it's not for me. Like, listening to podcasts. And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, well, what do people in the gun industry usually do, and how do they structure things so we don't necessarily do it exactly like that?
Right.
Or I'd been a frequent guest on This Week in Guns on the Firearms Radio Network, so like I didn't want it to be like that same structure, just not called This Week in Guns. So I messed around with interviewing things, and I know Joe Rogan's really an exceptional interviewer. I've heard that he's incredible, and I'd be, I've caught snippets, but I've never listened to like an entire podcast of his. And so, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a lot of questions that beg to be asked as to what. So that's kind of why it's like, I'm going to do this, and then that went on hold almost immediately. Like, that's a good idea, but the execution is very important. Yeah, it's a lot of thought.
Well, if you listen to his old podcast, he's not a great interviewer.
Well,
from 4 years ago.
Oh, I don't doubt that took a lot of time to develop.
Yeah. But right now, I think he is the most important person in media right now.
Interesting.
Because he's having the conversations that no one else is having.
Sure. Well,
and he's having them with people that need to be talking that you only get sound bites with on like MSNBC or Fox.
Right. Well, and I think there's a lot of topics that need to be talked about. Not everybody who has an opinion on it is a subject matter expert, and that's fine.
Sure.
But there are a lot of things that people just don't want to talk about or sweep under the rug, or well, I can't talk about it because I'm in doing this and talking about that would potentially negatively affect me.
Yeah.
So like here's one for you, and I think we talked about this a little bit last year, but like when I first started running for the NRA board, which I'm not doing again, so I can answer that question for you now. You know, like I was very cognizant of what gun people liked or didn't like, which is why like I wasn't necessarily super open about who I was as a person. And as time kind of went on, I was early on like I really don't like that I can't be myself, or I feel like I can't be myself. And you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna be myself. You either like me or you don't, and I don't really care either way. Doesn't matter to me. And I think that's probably why some of these things in a broader sense don't necessarily get talked about, because people are worried about how does this demographic that I do business with, or you know, influence or whatever it is, how will they look at me if I say something that is not necessarily in alignment with their views on a totally different topic? That's probably tough for some people.
It is. You know, it's tough for me too. I'll give you an example right here that has been bothering me lately. I don't like all the gay jokes in the firearms industry.
No, I don't either.
And I think there's there might be gay people in the firearms industry that are afraid to be who they are because of all the jokes.
There absolutely are.
And it's rampant in the shooting sports, and I don't like it.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And
that's a small example, but that's something I don't talk about, that I don't like it because so many people make those jokes. You just kind of like, and then are you complicit in it? Are you accepting it because you're not sitting out? There's something I struggle with.
There's certainly an argument to be made that you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that I can tell you definitively that when I was younger, I thought nothing of it. And as I got older, I was like, and I had more friends who were gay. Wow. Yeah, that actually does hurt people's feelings. And, you know, I'm Jewish, so I was the brunt of Jewish jokes growing up every now and then. It wasn't constantly picked on, and this isn't like, woe is me thing, but like, you know, enough people like, hi, really, you know, that's the 15th time I've heard that joke, and it wasn't funny the first time.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that certain things come up more frequently for certain demographics than others, and yeah, dude, that's gotta wear on you after a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially,
and then do you wanna go now to a match?
No, and just hear that nonsense. No.
Yeah. So now we lost another person that could be going to matches and celebrating our Second Amendment rights. Right. You know.
Right.
Buying more gear, buying more ammo.
I mean, you want to talk about shooters who are gay. Chris Chang is openly gay, winner of Top Shot, and I chatted with him. First time I was introduced to him was in the media room at SHOT Show. Other than like, I think I maybe heard his name. I had no idea he was gay. We talked for a long time, and he's a really fascinating dude. And somebody later on, I either read about it or I forget how I learned that he was gay. And like, cool, man, I don't care.
Yeah,
you're an awesome person. I want to be friends with you. What you choose to do is your business, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
None of mine. And he's a fascinating dude. He now has an exhibit in the Cody Firearms Museum. So if you're ever up in Wyoming,
I'll be there next weekend.
Go check it out. I know Ashley just redid. And Ashley's a really interesting chick too. She's a wicked smart girl. And she's the curator of a museum. And she's like, I don't think she's 30 yet.
I don't think so either. It's absolutely
all these people are super accomplished. I'm like, what have I done with my life?
Dude, I'm looking down the barrel of 40, and I'm like trying to figure that out right now.
Somebody, I think it was yesterday or the day before, was like, you know, we were talking about age, and like, yeah, I'm going to be 33 in August here. And they're like, wow, you've accomplished so much. I'm like, what have I accomplished? I don't think I've accomplished anything, and I don't know. Maybe it's just a internal like.
I think it is. I think you don't. If you're like me, you downplay your accomplishments and then you upplay the things you haven't done yet, or maybe your failures, right? And
yeah,
I think that's part of human nature too, and maybe in humble people. There's no one more humble than me. No, I'm just kidding.
Or those who are just in complete denial of everything.
Yeah, there's that too.
There's so there was an interesting thing I was talking about. So I'm going to be involved in a new project, and I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know how much I can. But one of the things I was talking to one of the
tease, by the way, that's
yeah,
well-crafted media.
Stay
right
tuned. There. One of the things I was talking about to one of the other guys involved with it was like, I'm working with some really smart people, It's, I think I'm going to be one of the dumbest people in the room. I truly think that, especially seeing where these other guys come from. And he's like, it's interesting. In this industry, there's a rampant thing called imposter syndrome. Where, and I never heard the term before, and it was essentially that, you think you're terrified that you're going to be found out as like a fraud and somebody who just, and like, even though you have accomplished things and you do know things and you like it's not, you haven't created a lie. Like, you've actually done things that give you expertise, I guess. I hate using that word because an expert's just a person who knows one more thing than you do. But
True.
like this idea that you're going to be found out, that you're a fraud, and that you aren't as smart as okay, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe I do suffer from that a little bit. But
Dude, it's a legitimate thing, man. I struggled with that when I started the Three-Gun Show. Like, who am I to start the Three-Gun Show? Who am I to be the guy that's hosting the podcast for the community? And that seems like such a silly thing now because no one else was going to do it.
Sure.
And I've done a pretty damn good job of it for 4 years.
Yeah.
So, but I still do it when I go to make a video. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm staring at the IWI Masada pistol, and I'm like, no one's gonna fucking care what I think about this. Like, I'm just some guy who talks on a podcast.
But it's weird. People do assign a value to your opinion and stuff. Like,
They do.
You saw me coming up the street. I got stopped by one guy, and then like 3 other people were like, "Hey, we love what you do," and like it's funny to me that people. I don't know if it's look up to me or respect what I have to say. Like, that cracks me up because I don't consider myself to be anything special or an expert. Okay,
Well,
I went to law school.
You've been around you your whole life.
Right.
You've seen all the stupid things you've done.
So many.
You saw
of
that
them.
time you peed your pants.
Fell up, walking upstairs. Yep, done that before.
You know all that stuff.
I
right?
do.
But we've seen a very narrow band of Adam, and we've seen Adam's best where it's been edited to glory. There's all kinds of sound effects, and we're entertained. We like it, and we identify with it.
Then you meet me in person, and you're like, he's a dick. We don't like him.
False. Not true at all. But that's what people see, and so that is people come to identify you or identify with you, right?
Yeah,
like
I think so.
I've actually got this thing now where I don't want to meet people that I respect their work because I've been disappointed so many times.
Really?
In especially in this industry, actually specifically in this industry, and Chris Costa came into the booth a little bit ago, and I just recently published a video where I made a big Costa joke.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, my God, is he here about that? Like, how did he even
he here about
How
that?
did he even know I was here? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris. Oh, God, I'm going to die.
I know, but that was my first thought. He probably has no clue. But I didn't want to talk to him because, like, I watched all the Magpul DVDs, and I thought he was really cool. Chris is a great dude. I've met him several times before, and he's a really nice guy. And then I was sitting there thinking, like, please, God, don't disappoint me. Don't be a dick this time. But he's totally cool because he's not,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. But from like people who create content like Chris Costa, you only see like a very narrow band of them. So when you do get that opportunity to meet them in person and like maybe talk about something that's not firearms related, it's a unique opportunity that you have. And you want to express, like, your gratitude.
Right.
Like, Adam, man, you taught me about braces on AR pistols.
Oh, God.
Thank you so much, And so, people want to express their gratitude, and that's how they do it. It's coming up, grabbing that photo, shaking your hand.
Yeah, like I said, it's interesting, and the whole YouTube fame thing is something. It's so comical to me because anybody can get a camera and record themselves and put them up on YouTube.
Cell phone, you can do it.
Yeah, one of, I guess, the biggest things that my takeaway in life, and I don't know where I learned it from or when I learned it, but don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
It's so off-putting when you go up to people that you see and you look up to or you watch on stuff and they're super serious about themselves. Like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm goofy. I don't take myself seriously. I walked into, here's one for you this morning, because Greg's walking by here. This morning, I was at Blazing Bagels, and I walk in, and Greg is standing outside with Dave Tim, and, I'm not going to keep your name out of my mouth. And so there's this line coming out. The line's literally out the door of the bagel shop, and I get in line, and then, hey, everybody, it's the Adam Kraut. He's famous on Instagram. Go follow him. Like, come on, guys. Why would you do that to me? So we're waiting. I was waiting for my bagel. There were some tables outside. And this guy comes in with his buddy to throw out his trash, and he stops and he looks at me. He's like, "Hey, I'm Daniel," and introduces himself to me and to my buddy Glenn, who's standing with me. Like, okay, well, this isn't out of the ordinary because we're in town for an event. Mm-hmm. So, like, 99.9%. I didn't think anything of it. Like, this guy recognized me from the internet. Like, right. Cool. And he goes, "I heard you're famous."
Dude, Daniel's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, "You've got a wicked sense of humor, man."
Yeah.
Thanks. You made my morning.
we were talking about it before the podcast. Like, that's definitely happened to me before where some friends have done that. And now you're stuck explaining to people why they should care or why
you shouldn't care. Let's start there. You shouldn't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you have an interest in gun laws, you can find me on the internet.
Yeah.
Or if you like dogs, follow me on Instagram.
Yeah. And then mine is even more niche. I'm like, you know what shooting sports are?
What?
Well,
like golf?
You know the Olympics, how they shoot the air rifle? Well, now
imagine a real gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we have 3 of them. But no, we're not shooting people. And, you got to go through that whole thing. Yeah, it's freaking weird. But, dude, did you know that the number one career that young people want right now is YouTuber?
Yes, because YouTubers make so much money. Dude. And I say that not as a YouTuber who makes so much money. Just so we're clear on that. Like, I'm not YouTube rich, but
literally money just fell out of his shorts right now. You can't see it.
You weren't supposed to see that.
This is a podcast. You can't see it.
You weren't supposed to see that.
They can't see it.
There was we were talking about this the other day, content creation. I forget who I was talking to, but they were saying the people who stream themselves playing video games right now, it's like some number billion-dollar industry. Yeah. So these kids literally will sit there all day, like 8 hours a day, playing video games. Then they'll edit the video, and these kids are making more money than I make. Like as a lawyer, like, what is wrong with this picture?
Isn't that insane?
Why did I go to law school? I could have just played Halo all day.
Only for good.
I'm not.
Yeah, you
well, I guess I wouldn't have made
stick
any
with
money
law
doing
school,
that
son.
either. But yeah, no, I know content. There's a lot of, and I guess maybe some of it has to do with the freedom of it, or what. But yeah, my understanding is, and again, I'm not one of the people that is, that you can potentially make a lot of money from content creation. But those people who do are like a very limited subset, and it's certainly not gun related either, because that's not getting anywhere.
I don't know if it's the money.
No?
I don't know why. I don't know why it is. I mean, I never dug that far into an article. Okay. But is it the money?
I don't know. That would have been my guess, because I get like PewDiePie, for instance. That dude makes how much money a year?
Well, so I would have thought. Okay, so I don't watch the mainstream ones like PewDiePie and
I don't watch any
all the weird vlogger ones.
Yeah.
So maybe it is the money now I think about it. But
maybe
they definitely get free shit.
Maybe we live in a generation that's also vain and just wants people to.
That's what I think it is. I think it's vain.
I think
they want people to love them. They want people to like them. And then they want free stuff because like people always do the unboxing things.
Yeah.
And so they think that's what it comes with. But
free stuff has a whole set of other headaches because it's not free stuff.
Nothing is ever free.
Nothing is ever free. No, it's not like these guys are like, hey, just send us stuff and cool, thanks. Now I have it. Like, no, that's not how that would work at all.
Like our mutual friend Adam Maxwell says, he's like the cheapest scope you'll ever buy, or the what is it? The cheapest scope. Yeah, the cheapest scope you'll ever get is the one you pay full price for.
Absolutely. Yeah. It comes with no expectations.
Exactly.
I gave you my money.
Yep.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
Done deal.
We're done.
We're business transaction.
Adios. Yeah.
Yeah.
But think about that next time you're sitting there writing a script, like, young people want to do what I'm doing right now.
Cool. Hey, man, have at it. You come write my script. I will read it, inject my messed up sense of humor into it, and then we will film it. Yeah, we should get some interns. Hey, you want an intern for a YouTuber?
Yeah. Get like a 12-year-old to come edit your videos.
We should go around town with a mic and a video and be like, hey, you want an intern for a YouTuber?
That would be a good video series,
I think that would be. Speaking of vlogs, so we took a night fighter class up at Ridgeline with Don Edwards from Greenline Tactical and Sam Houston. And Whitey from Four Guys Guns was going. And so we were talking about beforehand, and I guess he put up a poll on his page, like, should I vlog? And the answer was an overwhelming yes. And he mentioned it to me. I'm like, yeah, we should absolutely do a vlog. I've never done a vlog before in my life.
It's difficult.
You want to talk about difficult? Oh, my God. First of all, you have to remember to turn on the camera and actually record things.
tell the camera what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not just
Well,
record what you're doing.
No. But you have to remember to start with hey, I should probably record literally everything. So that already we were down like that went out the window. So we did he posted it on his Facebook page, and I think it's on their YouTube channel. And it's probably the worst vlog ever. It's so bad.
I can't tell you how many failed vlogs I have from going to matches.
Yeah.
And it just never works out.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Talon, so Talon Sai, I don't know if you ever met Talon. He's somewhat local to me in PA, and I've hung out with him now a couple times. He's an awesome dude, and he has a very popular vlog on YouTube, that one that's keeps growing. He calls it the dopest vlog in the game, and he's so good at it. And so before we did this, I'm like, hey, man, do you have any tips on how to do a vlog? And he's like, yeah, just record everything. I'm like, cool, got it. Yep, nope, totally failed right out of the gate. So you will not see me doing vlogs ever.
Yeah. So I actually, I've got this little GoPro 7 right here. We're not next week. So next week going to be in Cody shooting the Wyoming Governor's match and visiting Cody Firearms Museum.
Yes.
Week after that is Douglas, Wyoming for the Vortex Extreme, which is a precision match.
Okay.
And it's a team match. So I figure I don't want to pack in my big camera, so I got this little GoPro, and I figure my partner and I can kind of do a little vlog for that.
Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm telling you now, you're both going to be like, we got to shoot this match.
Dude, challenge accepted. I'm going to do it.
Well, I hope you turn that thing on and tape it to you somewhere and just keep it running the whole time.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, it's a 9-mile hike with 40 targets and 2 shots apiece. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of walking.
Yeah.
What's the elevation up there?
Yeah, right. It's I think it's actually pretty low. It's only 5,500 feet.
Yeah, that's not bad. You'll be okay.
No, it could be worse. It could be worse.
Yeah. I so before this, I did some backpacking in Rainier. I did that last year too. And for me, elevation wise, I start to feel the altitude at 9,000 plus. Or 10. So I did the Tetons a couple of years ago, going over those mountain passes without Diamox at 10,000. I didn't get sick or nauseous, but I could tell the air was significantly less than I was used to. I'm like, oh my god, climbing out of a valley from. We did most of the Teton Crest Trail, and the second night we stayed at Sunset Lake, and you got to climb up over the ridge to go over the pass. Dude, it took forever to go over.
Oh, yeah.
You go 10 feet and be like, oh, my God, I'm dying. And wait 5 minutes, oh, my God, I'm dying again.
Yep. Dude, for me, it was always 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to live in Colorado, born and raised in Colorado.
Gotcha.
And so it was 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I would I never had an altimeter or anything.
Mm-hmm.
My pal Tom that I always hiked with did. And so I would tell him, we hit 10,000. And he'd be 10-2. And it was like clockwork. I could feel it happening. But now, this last November, moved to Texas. And I just shot a match in Colorado over 4th of July weekend. And it's in Colorado Springs, which is, for me, that was ground zero, right? But now it's high elevation. And I was feeling it. And it was
funny how that works.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's a physiological thing. I knew it was going to happen, but it still was disheartening because this is my home territory.
It was anyway.
Yeah,
your body decided not anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
lost it fast.
I'm trying to think of what it's Big Island in Hawaii.
Got me, dude.
Yeah, it's one of the few places in the world you can go from sea level to over 14,000 feet, and I can't remember the name of the mountain. It's escaping me, and there's a I was thinking astronomy observation at
the
top of it.
Observatory. Is that what that is?
Maybe, I don't know. I forget the name of it, but it's they have a problem with people. They'll tell you that people will drive. There's a visitor center. I think it's around 10,000 feet. There's a visitor center. And then you can go up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
They close the portion at the top at a certain time. You can't get up there. But there's stories of husbands and wives who will drive to the top. They'll start at the ocean level, out on the outside of the island, drive inland, and keep going up in elevation. They'll get to the top, and they'll be fighting, and they'll come back down to 10,000 feet where the oxygen is a little better and get lower, and they won't have any idea what they were fighting about or why. And it's because your body's just, I guess, freaking out from
for sure,
lack of oxygen. So that's gonna bother me so much. Oh well. if you're listening, you can Google it.
Yeah, put it in the comments.
Yeah, let us
Maybe
know in the comments below.
Visit there. Yeah. All right, Adam. So we got about 10 minutes left.
Sure.
So I want to ask you about the NRA because I've been super curious about this, and knowing that we were going to be here, I was planning on just asking you, period, when I saw you, but then we're doing the podcast, so I saved it for this.
Okay.
What the hell is going on with the NRA right now?
Well,
There's some weird shit happening.
It's a little fair question. There's obviously been some problems going on. One, they fired Ackerman McQueen.
Right. So that was their advertising agency?
Yeah. Here's the real quick backstory, and you can find this online. There's it's documented in the book Ricochet, that was written by a former NRA lobbyist. Ackerman McQueen came into the NRA in the 90s, and they very quickly became embedded within the organization. So rather than NRA using them as an outside vendor, they more or less started to run NRA. This was, Neil Knox was very against having Ackerman McQueen, wanted budgets cut. There was an incident in the 90s where Wayne was told to fire Ackerman. There was a vote of no confidence in Wayne. They created a different company that was wholly owned by Ackerman McQueen, and that one was hired. So Ackerman McQueen has been more or less, in some ways, synonymous with NRA. Mm-hmm. There was a falling out. I don't know what caused the falling out.
Between Ackerman and the NRA?
Yes.
Okay.
And recently, now lawsuits have started to fly between Ackerman and NRA about various things. The contract between them was terminated, which somebody brought up to me, and I hadn't thought about this, is going to pose some interesting questions about NRAM next year, because Ackerman was the one responsible for planning the thing.
Yeah.
NRA TV got axed,
Yep.
which I think is fine. I was appealing to a very small subset of people that were like base rah anyway, and it was not.
It
wasn't bringing anybody from the outside
the choir.
in. Yeah, it certainly wasn't bringing anybody into the fold. And then you have this whole fight going on in regards to the board of directors. So now and there's also, and I think it's probably fairly right. You're seeing articles published in the Trace and the Washington Post, New York Times, Rolling Stone, and I could almost guarantee you it's Bloomberg funded, especially because the Trace is a Bloomberg thing, but it doesn't make some of the stuff they're publishing any less true.
It's just hard to figure out what's true when Bloomberg is behind it, though.
Yeah, but when there's literally documents that say something, you have a document okay, well, the document says this thing.
Gotcha.
There appears to be a coordinated attack on the organization, but there's a lot of questions as to the financials in things, deals that were made, how money was spent, things like that. So now you have board members that are saying that nothing to see here, everything is great.
Yep.
All this stuff went through the audit committee, the finance committee. They approved it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And then you have board members that aren't saying a thing. And you have some board members that are being very open about, Wayne LaPierre needs to go. We want an independent financial audit done from an outside agency. Why are we paying this law firm, I forget what the figure is, but I think it was close to at least $1 million a month, if not more. Yeah, right. Like, where do I get those billable hours? Jeez. Is this an appropriate spend? Well, some lawyers, and mind you, this lawyer has been disciplined in, I think it was in Virginia or Texas, and wasn't allowed to practice. I'm mixing them up, but there's been disciplinary action taken against him, which I think he's appealing, but he also wasn't allowed to practice in Virginia. I think it was because of what he did in Texas. So there's a lot of questions going on, and there's a lot of this core, everything's fine, nothing to see here, Adam Kraut's the devil, these people are wrong. Well, if there's nothing to see, what's wrong with an independent financial audit?
Yep.
It's not going to show anything, right? So what's the problem? And so you have a lot of members, this has been going on for a couple of years, a lot of members who are pissed off at the NRA for, the positions they've taken publicly. Oh, Chris Cox left. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that. That's a fairly big deal.
Well, and then what happened with Oliver North? Wasn't there an attempted coup?
Well, hey, I guess it depends what you define as a coup. And
air quotes coup.
Yeah. So there was a question as to Oliver North. My understanding of that whole situation was there were some messages sent back and forth prior to the NRA annual meeting starting as to, Oliver North actually wanted to set up an emergency committee to look into some of these things. And by the way, Oliver North, my understanding was he had a contract with Ackerman McQueen for a TV show that Wayne LaPierre knew about and said was cool. And now they're claiming like, yeah, we had no knowledge of that. And so there's questions as to fiduciary duties and whether or not he was doing things right. But I mean, you can kind of find all this out on there's some articles about this, but essentially Oliver North did not attend the annual meeting. He skipped town. I think it was Thursday night. He was seen at the airport and he was gone. And that was that. Didn't show up at the meeting of the members. It was run by Richard Childress. That meeting turned into a giant interesting time. They tried to adjourn the meeting before resolutions were read, and then that got stopped by the members, surprisingly, and there was a resolution read about more or less another vote of no confidence in Wayne LaPierre, which devolved into board members standing up to support him and very vocal dissenters saying, like, no, and that was like a 45-minute long debate.
Wow.
Oliver North, to my knowledge, is still a board member. He's now engaged in litigation with the NRA, requesting for indemnification for having to respond to congressional inquiry and other things. NRA is being investigated by the New York and the Washington, D.C. Attorney General. There's calls from members of Congress for the IRS to start looking at their nonprofit status because of the stuff coming out. There's clearly an issue.
Yeah.
I guess the question is how big is the actual issue? And, of
Right.
course, you can't get any good, solid information to determine that, although you have people quoted in the news and whatnot. So again, it's like there's nothing to see here. Don't worry about this. This is all Bloomberg trying to destroy us. And if you're calling for any of this stuff to be done, you're against the NRA and
Yes.
against the Second Amendment, and that's where I really take issue with that. It is entirely possible to want to clean up your house and get rid of bad apples and people that have been, if abuse has been happening as far as financials and things, axe those people and still be for, protecting gun rights and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But according to some board members, that's not the case.
So I've seen some board members that that I've met in person, and thought like this is a legitimate Second Amendment supporter that has good intentions.
Right.
Be stripped of their committee duties.
Yes.
And now they're just kind of like, go over there, son. Let the adults handle this.
Yes. Yep. That's exactly right. And as they've said in their press releases, like, yes, it has always been the prerogative of the NRA president to assign people to committees. But if you look at the people who were stripped of their committee assignments and the committees they were taken from and the timing of it, it very clearly screams that it's retaliatory in nature and nothing less than that. Right. When you have an individual who was very instrumental in grassroots things for a number of years, was recognized by NRA for grassroots efforts and stuff, being removed from the grassroots committee, that raises a lot of questions, especially when his experience has continued. It's not like he stopped 20 years ago.
Right.
Like we're talking real recent stuff where he's been involved. It screams retaliatory, and you can frame it however you want if you're on the other side. But like anybody looking at it with their eyes open is going to say, "Really? That you just these are the people that you happen to strip it because of your prerogative?"
Right.
Yeah.
Like it stinks for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like the NRA definitely stinks, and it's interesting because ever since I became like a gun owner the second time, because like when I was 13 didn't count because I didn't really have any skin in the game, right?
Sure.
So ever since then, the people that I've been surrounded with have been saying like the NRA is not your friend. The NRA is not your friend.
Right.
There was whatever 1970 whatever. Like, all this shit has happened, and the NRA has never stood by us. I watched that happen in Colorado when, like you were talking about rallies. There was a big rally. There was no one from the NRA there. No one from the NRA helped us with anything in Colorado. We begged and begged and begged. They never came. And all the Bloomberg laws got passed. I hear the same thing from people in California. I heard the same thing from guys in Washington.
Right.
I don't know if that's 100% true. Where the F are they, right? And then now we're seeing like, okay, well, all the money's going to the like you said, the $1 million a month lawyer and stuff, and you're like, oh, I got it. Like, it makes sense. It's just it's big slush fund for half a dozen people to get rich on. And, they just beat the drum of rah, rah, rah.
It certainly is the outward appearance as of now. I mean, to
Right.
say NRA does absolutely nothing would also be disingenuous.
Totally understand. That's just like,
I think
yes, you're correct.
most people who I think most people who look at it, I certainly want to see the NRA survive. I want to see the NRA be a stronger organization, but there clearly are some leadership issues, and that stuff needs to be addressed. And I think unfortunately a lot of people who are right now either anti-NRA, if you want to call it that, or they're screaming for reform, aren't necessarily all looking at the same picture either. Some are very upset about just the positions they take publicly on certain issues, and that is a problem. I agree, 100%. But if we're not going to fix this leadership issue, which I think is a little more pressing, that other stuff isn't really necessarily going to even make any difference in the long run. So I think people need to really start looking at who the people are that are leading this organization, and let's fix that. Let's fix it now. So that the organization can become stronger and survive and thrive and hopefully become, a forefront in gun rights and protecting rights again. But to say, I've said, NRA does some things really well. It's also screwed some things up, and to take a position that all they do is destroy things is disingenuous. And that
carte blanche, just say 100% of it is bad.
But the
good.
the 100% opposite side of the spectrum that everything they do is right, great, and God's gift to the world is also not right.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm at is I'm trying to form an opinion on, is it a lost cause or can it be saved, and then how can I help? What can I do?
Sure. So
if it can be saved.
Well, it's funny. I when I originally ran, it was per the suggestion of one of those members who got stripped of their committee assignments, and I thought I was doing it with the best intentions of hey, maybe I could be useful, and I very quickly learned that it's a very ugly political water to navigate. Everybody hates you. Nobody likes you. The people in the organization think you're out to get them. People outside think you're in it for yourself, and you're okay, well, what the hell am I doing this for? What the fuck's the point?
Right.
And so, I'm done. I've got other ventures I'm going to go pursue that I think I can help further firearms-related rights in. And, the one thing that I am very happy about is that there are other people that are continuing the conversation. And at the end of the day, if that's what I accomplished, if I even accomplished that, if I had any little part of making that a reality, cool, I'm good with that. That's great. I wanted others to get involved. It was never something that I thought I was going to walk in and be this is how we're going to do things now. And people are oh, yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say. Let's go do that. No. It's going to take a group of people, and it's not all going to happen overnight. But I'm glad to see that other people are working on things. One of the things I did was I proposed bylaw changes. I never got anywhere near the number of things. It's funny, all these people who cry about things online either aren't members or just don't care enough to take the time to print out a piece of paper, sign it, and send it.
Yep.
So I would tell you that there's a organization called Save the Second that is looking to reform the NRA from within. Rob Pincus is on the board. There's two other members that were former NRA employees that worked there for a very long time that saw the inside and how it operates. And quite honestly, off the top of my head, there's a gentleman, I think he's from Colorado, and I forget the other gentleman that sit on the board of that too, but they have kind of reworked the bylaw changes that I'd proposed, and similar thing for term limits. And so I would tell you to take a look at them. But there are active people that are active, being active about we need to do something. There is an avenue for you, and I think it's worth putting some effort into. I don't think just walking away and saying, Now, what I would tell you, and I admittedly might be changing my position from years past on this, is I wouldn't send them any more money.
Yeah.
If you're voting, the only people I would really, if you're a voting member that's an annual member that has to renew in order to retain your voting rights, you're about the only people I would tell you to send money, and that would be in the form of your membership dues and only your membership dues. But if you're a life member or whatever, you've already paid and it doesn't matter, and I sure as hell wouldn't be donating money to them. Find other organizations, Second Amendment Foundation based out of right where we are.
Yeah,
they're a great organization. They're doing a lot of litigation. I've been very impressed with them. I've worked with them, not directly, but through other things. So I've had contact with the people running that. I think they're awesome. I'm a huge fan of Firearms Policy Coalition. I do work directly with them on things in litigation.
They seem like they're doing cool stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
very
aggressive.
and it's very libertarian oriented
Yes.
as far as mindset and values. And it's not just firearm stuff. They're starting to look at other constitutional rights as well. So maybe the name banner won't necessarily reflect all the stuff that they're doing, but I work with them. I think they're great guys. So, I think they're worthy of your money. Obviously, it's your money. Spend it where you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
So there are other places to give money if you want to give money. It's just, I wouldn't give it to NRA right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So, and admittedly, like I said, my position has changed from years past on that, and I can admit maybe I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in politics, you're called a flip-flopper. But
That's cool.
But in everyday life, like now you have more facts, so you can make a better decision.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say. But all right, well, it's interesting what's going on, and I think you mentioned term limits, and I think that is the basis of everything that is wrong, because people get into a position they want to protect it for life. And they do weird, irrational things to make that happen.
Yeah, it's funny because I had in my head, had I been elected, I had in my head a set time frame that I wanted to stick around for, and that was it.
Yep.
Now, I would like to believe that as time wore on, I would. That would be it. I would be like, yep, this is what I wanted to do. I'm good. I'm done. I'm ready to go. Rather than be like, well, this is kind of cool, or like I like being called a board of director, so I'm just going to hang out, or, I enjoy the trips to wherever we're going and the free food. Like
the sweet blazers.
Right. So, I had
blazers.
a time frame set out in my mind as to how long I would be willing to do it for, if the members hadn't, obviously I wasn't elected, so this is kind of like a discussion of, futility. But, if the members decided to keep electing, I had a set time frame as to how long I wanted to do it before I was like, okay, off to go do something else, and somebody else can step up and continue. That didn't come to fruition, and that's fine. I'm good with it.
Yeah, and I think that's like the intent of our overall political system. Is like, hey, come do your service and then go back to being a farmer or a doctor.
Originally,
yeah.
I think it's a bigger problem. Well, I mean, it's a problem generally, but I think in the federal government especially, and you're never going to find people that are going to want to vote to limit themselves out of a good thing.
No, and they did it with the president. They voted to limit the president, but not themselves.
And Ben, you look. I mean, that wasn't from the outset. That wasn't how it was. That was the president determining that, like, I don't want to be king.
Yeah,
I should leave.
Well, no,
but you're coming fresh off a revolution.
More recently, there was it wasn't always that you could only have 2 terms as president.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that was like 100 years after the nation was founded.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it had been a while.
Yeah, yeah, because there was, I think, 1 3-term president. I don't recall. I shouldn't speculate.
I think it might have been FDR. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think so too.
I might be wrong on that, but I think it might have been FDR.
Yeah.
Should pay more attention in history.
Well, it matters so much now. Well, okay. So I think I don't really feel any better about that, but
I wasn't meant to make you feel any better.
No. I totally understand, but I think I have like a little bit more clear understanding of like what went on. So, cool. Thanks for explaining that.
Sure.
What's next? What's next for you, man?
Lunch.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No. Like I said, I'm working on a thing that you may or may not hear about in the relatively near future. I'm excited about it. I think people I'm working with are very excited about it, and I think as time goes on, it has a very big potential to be impactful in the rights arena, but it's certainly not going to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited about that. And I mean that's going to be kind of it. Some content creation, maybe a podcast that's not going to talk about gun stuff, and I guess the next thing on my horizon would probably be the gun rights policy conference out in Arizona.
Cool.
And I think SHOT after that. So, and hopefully maybe a vacation here.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to most that is non-firearm related?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, like I just did something. I'd like to try to get for some more backpacking this year. That would probably be the thing. I don't know if it's going to happen as far as like a good trip getting away. Like I wanted to go back to the Tetons this year. Other than that, I don't. Off the top of my head, there's nothing that really comes to mind. But I'm not a very exciting person, contrary to what some people seem to perceive.
Well, get it home and enjoy the dogs.
Yeah.
And keep fighting for us, man. Keep teaching us, and we appreciate what you do. Cool. Thanks for being here on the Triggrcon Show.
Well, thanks for having me again. It's always fun.